Well, thank you, and thank you, Anna, on those remarks on Finland. If a year ago I would have to have given my prediction on Finnish NATO membership, I would have seen that based on what I knew back then, the opportunities for that are very low. Even though I have always been a firm NATO membership supporter for Finland, it's about timing. You have to, like Machiavelli said, especially the small ones, have to take their decisions at the right time. And the time became ripe. I think 24th of February was a very dramatic moment for many of us, seeing what happened when large-scale warfare broke out in Europe. That was devastating, shocking that international war had returned to Europe. On hindsight, of course, it shouldn't be surprising that power transformation struggles all usually touch and start from Europe. And this is what we have in front of us. It is a full-scale challenge on the existing order of things, not only in Europe, but wider global rule-based order is being challenged. And that usually means that there's going to be series of conflicts, either simultaneously or then one after another. They might be unrelated, but the pressure is boiling over in different corners of the world. And there are different drivers from the pandemic that lowered the trust levels quite radically between the key powers, to the present conflict in Europe, to the coming resource scarcity. And also it is striking that we have genocides happening in today's Europe. But it wasn't the 24th of February. It was the fact that the Ukrainians were fighting and the force met with the counterforce already in the willingness of Ukrainians to defend their country. I think that was a wake-up call in Finland. And it wasn't a top-down process in Finland. It was a bottom-up process. The population changed their opinion quite dramatically. It started to increase the NATO support. Before the invasion was about 25%. Now it is 85% in Finland. So old memories came back. Finland remembered what its position on the map has been traditionally and historically. And if you look to the geostrategic map of Northern Europe, you don't have to be a genius to figure out what has been the Finnish role during the past centuries or so as a part of the Swedish Empire, and then later on during the Second World War, during the Winter War and Continuation War. And the dilemma wasn't very hard. There's a Finnish saying that during the Continuation War, the choice was between plague and cholera. Well, right now, the choice wasn't that difficult because it was a choice between remaining where you are, somehow trying to stabilize the situation through being static, not seizing at the moment, or then choosing a defense alliance of democracies. So the choice was relatively obvious. So if you look into the Finnish history, you can see quite a lot of the answers why the change happened. I find some poetic justice in the fact that the last remnants of the Swedish Empire chose together, and the Swedes were following the Finns. But if you look to the map, well, they followed us by 8 seconds, and the Finnish media actually counted those seconds when the application letters were given to NATO, and that matters when it comes to media, and the media narratives, they stem from the strategic culture of the country. What resonates with the population is seen in the headlines of the newspapers in Finland. So it became clear that we have a role, and the role that we used to have that was based on the legacies of the so-called Finlandization process. That was a strategic tool used by the Soviet Union, a window dressing policy, to attract Western European democracies to join the happy cohabitation between different systems. It had some effect in Western Germany, for example. The Ostpolitik was partly based on legacies of that same period. It was the Germans and the Austrians, by the way, who coined the term Finlandization. It was a curse word. For Finland, it was a problem to be explained away during the Cold War years, but then it had the legacy, it had a tail, kind of a Finnish version of isolationism, somehow explaining that for us, Russia is a special case, and we have a special relationship with Russia based on trust. Then later on, after the end of the Cold War, it became a good neighborly policy. Then the word management came up, that we are managing the Russia relationships, the relationship so masterfully. And now, of course, time is that to realize that we have difficulties in managing a neighbor that starts a war in the neighborhood. So how to manage a disruption? Rather than managing, you have to ground and earth such shocks that are emanating from Russia. And I was happy that Finland decided last weekend to discontinue exporting natural gas from Russia. So we are seeing clear ramifications, and the legacy of a policy and the political capital invested in it is coming down, and that is going to have consequences when it comes to future Finnish foreign policy. So the foreign policy has to be built from the ground up based on grey granite, not so much on the naive expectation that you can gain peace through trade, but peace has to be there in the first place, a sustainable peace, in order to have trading relationship with a neighbor that is increasingly not only autocratic, but totalitarian, kind of a Russist regime based on a personality cult, mysticism of the mother Russia. If you read the article by Putin from last June, it was full of text that is reminiscent of what Slobodan Milosevic said about Kosovo, that the heart of Kosovo is heart of Serbia is in Kosovo, and therefore we cannot give it up. But it is also reminiscent of one particular book written by an author of Austrian origin. So the orphan children of Belarus and Ukraine has to be returned underneath to the skirt of Mother Russia. They have swallowed up Belarus already. So now the question then becomes, what is left of the legacy? 6 months ago, I would have been here. If you would have invited me, I would have been talking about the spirit of Helsinki and the importance of that. But we cannot spoil a spirit when there's a cold wind blowing from Siberia. So we need to recalculate the kind of the multilateral side of the Finnish foreign policy, when to use some of the legacies that are still very important in Europe. When Russia is overextended and overexhausted, that might be the moment. But now the moment is not ripe for that. But the ripeness of the NATO membership is here with us, and I hope that we can reach that together with Sweden. And I'm sure that the Turks can be convinced that there has been quite a lot of support, for example, from Finland when it comes to the EU track, when it comes to different initiatives that Turkey has made. Finland has never regarded Turkey as an outsider to Europe. So it is a little bit surprise to us that they would be blocking NATO membership. But let's see what happens after drinking a few cups of tea with the Turks. Thank you very much.